said to my friend the other day, I said, on this age, we can get into debates around fitness. Look, I'd rather have 80 years behind me than those 88 federal criminal counts in front of me. And so I feel very good about Joe Biden.
My message is, Gavin Newsom, I am going to expose you for the complete fraud that you are, the liar that you are, and you will never, ever be the president of this country.
The latest showdown on the West Coast isn't happening on the waves or in a movie studio. It's between a hard-nosed sheriff and California's top figure, Governor Gavin Newsom. And trust me, the heat in this clash isn't just coming from the California sun. The sheriff has stepped forward with open criticism, calling out what he claims are the governor's serious failures.
And we're just looking at each other like, how would someone across the world know that we have a lunatic for a governor? I was concerned with my career, my life, my family, my own home, and making sure that I was. Chief of police from the largest police agency in the country said that they are being overwhelmed. Governor Newsom needs to put his phone down, go sit in his house behind the comfort of his TV screen and a couch, and be quiet, because he is doing nothing but fuel.
I know what you're probably wondering. What makes this situation stand out? Well, this isn't just another complaint. It's a full-on rhetorical offensive against the state's highest office, painting a picture of unchecked homelessness, soaring crime, and a public safety system that frankly looks like it's falling apart.
Failed verbal takedown of the state's head honcho, painting a picture of crime skyrocketing, homelessness spiraling out of control, and a public safety system.
The sheriff's bold charges are sending shockwaves from Sacramento to San Diego, and Californians are reevaluating the leadership of their once golden state.
Been lied to from the very beginning. The politicians, California politicians, the mayor of Los Angeles, our governor, have completely failed in that nothing was happening in the beginning. It was allowed to spiral out of control, and then they have created this narrative that completely defies facts and a timeline that we know.
It raises the question, will anything in California actually change? And how might all this turbulence affect Newsom's future political ambitions? Online, the reaction has been explosive. Debates, memes, and endless commentary are spreading fast. This could spiral quickly, so it's worth paying attention. If stories like this catch your interest, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your support keeps these investigations going and helps bring more hidden narratives to light. Stick with me, because what happened next was striking. Our unnamed sheriff kicked things off with what many are calling a truth bomb, one that shook the conversation wide open. It began when, tired of polished speeches and flashy PR stunts, the sheriff decided to hold a press conference of his own.
He needs to stay out of the way of law enforcement. He knows nothing about this. He has enabled this lawless act that is going on right now. This has been years in the making that he has encouraged. So quite frankly, I don't care what he says. He says everything in a disingenuous manner for his own personal political gain. And we are...
The setting felt less like a press conference and more like a standoff. The atmosphere buzzed with tension as cameras clicked into position and microphones were raised. Then came the opening line from the sheriff. California's situation, he declared, was spiraling out of control.
That government is supposed to be working for us. We are not supposed to be working to increase the size of government. And that's the only reason why California is no longer the greatest state in the country. You can have our politicians say it as much as they want, but we are the laughingstock of the rest of the country. We are the laughingstock of the world.
The setting was a room that felt more like a standoff than a media event.
And the picture he painted was anything but flattering. According to him, crime isn't just rising, it's reaching levels that can't be brushed aside with carefully polished statistics. The numbers, he claimed, spoke for themselves. In today's California, even petty theft has become almost routine. Shoplifters stroll out of stores with overflowing carts, as if taking part in some bizarre game show. The sheriff also turned his attention to homelessness, pulling no punches there either. California has long prided itself on its progressive values, he said, but pride shouldn't mean willful blindness. He described city blocks transformed into sprawling camps, resembling chaotic festivals stripped of music and shelter. His warning was blunt. The situation is dire. In his view, homelessness in the state has spiraled far beyond control.
It's boot on our backs, keeping us down with over-regulation, activism, appeasement of activists, instead of taking care of the majority of Californians as a whole. And it's an agenda. It is a complete agenda of making sure that government is in control of all of our lives instead of us being in control of government. And so the only reason I'm doing this is to...
This, he argued, isn't some minor inconvenience to brush aside. It's a daily reality that stares residents in the face. And the sheriff wasn't finished laying it out. He shifted to the drug crisis, warning that the situation is only getting worse. In his words, fentanyl has unleashed devastation, transforming once stable neighborhoods into pockets of addiction and despair. Officers, he said, are forced to battle it constantly as if the fight were their second unpaid job, an unwanted guest that refuses to leave.
Just last week, the San Diego Board of County Supervisors passed an internal policy that prohibits the Sheriff's Department from cooperating with federal immigration authorities, like ICE. This comes off the heels of Governor Gavin Newsom calling for an emergency session to safeguard California's laws and values before the Trump administration takes office in January. One of the key issues at the forefront of the conversation is California's sanctuary status for undocumented immigrants. But not everyone is on board with these actions. San Diego Sheriff Kelly Martinez came out in opposition to the policy and said that she would not comply. Even though Martinez is not a conservative, she is responsible for maintaining public safety and for
Then came what could only be described as the bombshell. The sheriff directly called out the governor and other leaders, accusing them of bragging about progress while ignoring California's harsh realities. In his view, they were polishing the image of a golden paradise even as the state wrestled with deep and undeniable problems.
He's like, everyone wants to go to the United States, and it used to be everyone wants to go to California. Here, no one wants to go to California anymore. They'll go to California for Disneyland. That's it. And it's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing that we are no longer the greatest state in the country, and we're still all the same people. We're still all the same businesses. It's our government that has completely changed and brought us to this laughingstock position. And I'm going to take it back. I take some blame for it because I wasn't standing on the rooftops yelling to everyone that we had to stop this. Look, I was concerned with my career, my life, my family, my own home, and making sure that I was secure. I kind of just wasn't paying attention to what government was doing, and now it's affecting everyone. So I will make sure that what I came to California for, my California dream, I will make sure that every kid growing up now has that dream, and even the kids that now are from 20 to 35, that it's impossible for them to make their California dream. I'll make sure that I make up for it, and we return the ability to look at that Gold Coast as the beacon for the rest of the...
He claimed that instead of tackling the hard truths directly, state leaders were playing a dangerous game of make-believe, massaging crime statistics like magicians pulling rabbits from hats. According to him, this wasn't about overlooking a few details. It was about weaving a story that had little connection to reality. He even questioned how often police reports were watered down or disappeared altogether just to protect certain reputations. The sheriff likened it to throwing a dinner party in a house on fire, everyone admiring the food while the flames devoured the walls. And when those words hit the public, the reaction was electric. Social media lit up. Some mocked him as old-fashioned, out of touch with California's modern vision. Others rallied behind him, cheering him on as the lone cowboy daring to expose the establishment's polished grin. But he wasn't finished. Pointing directly at Sacramento, he accused state officials of staging a grand masquerade, celebrating themselves while real problems simmered just beneath the glitter. This wasn't just criticism, he warned. It was an alarm bell. He reserved special fire for Governor Gavin Newsom, blasting him for boasting about California's achievements on the world stage while ignoring the turmoil at home. To keep selling the state as a flawless utopia, he argued, was more than dishonest. It was a betrayal of residents living with the widening gap between image and reality. Then came his final thrust, public safety. In his view, it wasn't just deteriorating, it was descending into outright chaos. Crimes were being committed, suspects were arrested, and yet they were back on the streets before the ink on the paperwork dried. So, what becomes of the California dream, the promise of peace, sunshine, and opportunity? If you ask this sheriff, it's now hanging by a thread. Who shoulders the blame? With crime numbers painting a grim picture and the government's glowing claims feeling too polished to trust, it's a question anyone would ask. The sheriff reminded listeners that break-ins and burglaries still dominate headlines. Even as Governor Newsom issues polished press releases touting California's wealth and vibrant immigrant communities, he didn't dismiss diversity. He called it a strength, but he also argued that it's hollow to celebrate it while ignoring the struggles those very communities face. The tension was thick, like a high noon showdown. Would people rally behind the sheriff's frustration or brush him off as just another voice crying out? Either way, the questions he raised couldn't easily be dismissed. This wasn't just one sheriff venting. His words echoed what many across the state have long felt, that their concerns are drowned out by scripted speeches and glossy press events, and that echo spread across party lines, pulling in voices that don't often agree. As for Newsom, yes, he survived plenty of political storms, but even the most seasoned leaders know public opinion can shift in an instant. The sheriff's accusations forced Californians and even Americans beyond the state to reconsider what they've been promised. Can Newsom convince people to look past this? The odds aren't in his favor. The sheriff's message was less about tearing down the system and more about forcing it to face its flaws, the growing crises in crime, homelessness, and governance that threaten to overwhelm California if left unchecked. The aftermath, however, is still unfolding. Some see his words as destructive, others as necessary. But one thing is clear, every time the sheriff speaks, Newsom's polished image frays a little more. So what about you? Do these issues deserve closer scrutiny, or is the sheriff just making noise to grab attention? Share your thoughts in the comments. How do you think this clash could reshape California's reputation and leadership? Let's debate, question, and search for truth in the middle of all this chaos.